Okie dokie, I think we are live. Do let me know when you can see and hear me. Now, I may have some issues with my sound because the cat has eaten my little fluffy thing that goes on the top. So my sound might be a little bit, I don't know what it's going to sound like, to be honest, but I'm hoping it's okay. So please let me know when you can hear me, when you can see me, or you can hear me. Hurrah, hurrah, I'm live, hooray. You can see it and you can hear me okay. I can't believe it. I'm there putting my microphone on and I'm looking for my little furry thing that goes on the top of my microphone and it's gone. I've been on the floor with my torch. Anyway, the cat's eaten it, I think. So, so there we go. Happy New Year to everybody. Honestly, this is amazing. We're going to have such a lovely, lovely time today. We're going to be drawing this fabulous deer that we can see here. I've got to use the other hand because it's opposite on my screen. Yeah, we're going to be drawing this. Now, we've got a very limited amount of pencils, which I did on purpose because I want to really concentrate on the darks and the lights. If you don't have the same pencils as me, please don't worry. We've got a couple of hours that we're going to be just enjoying ourselves. You can ask your questions. I'm going to be, you know, chattering away like I normally do and hopefully giving you some really good tips to be able to go away and work on your own pieces, which is great. Please do try to stay for the end because there might be a very special little something at the end, which is very exciting. Yeah, please do try to stay till the end of the live draw so that you get the little surprise as well. And I think we'll just crack on. You know, it's just so lovely to see so many of you here joining me live. People from all over the world. How many are on live? 983 of us at the moment. Which is amazing, isn't it? Absolutely amazing. So I'm going to switch me off and we're going to go over to my drawing board. So I'm just going to come over here. I'm also going to, oh no, I don't need to do that. I've got Vicky's going to be looking after all of the questions and everything. What I'll do is I'll just pop Vicky onto my messenger there. I'm going to move that away because we don't need that. So we've got a limited amount of pencils today. These are the only pencils that I've got to work with. So there's a black. There's a very sort of dark grey, which is it's dark sepia, but if you haven't got dark sepia, you can just use a really dark grey. We've got two creams, an ivory polychromos and a cream Pablo, and the reason for that is because they both feel different, and it's you just get a bit of a better lay down with the Pablo. But if you haven't got the Pablo, use the ivory. That will be absolutely fine. Oh, actually, I'm lying. I've got the white there as well. Where's my white? I've got the white as well, the white Pablo. If you haven't got the white Pablo, choose something like a luminance or maybe, yeah, a luminance. I mean, a push, a polychromos, but if you have to work over the top of it, which we probably won't have to actually, so you'll probably be fine with a white polychromos. And then we have two different colours here, the burnt ochre and the walnut brown. Let me just double check that they are the correct ones. Yeah, cool. Brilliant. So we're going to make a start. I'm going to start quite small, and then I'll zoom in a little bit when we get to sort of any like details and stuff. We aren't going to finish it because it's, you know, it's quite a big drawing. It's sort of like 6.5 inches across. We're not going to finish it today, but what I want to show you is some really nice techniques to be able to get it looking quite spectacular quite quickly. So we are actually going to start with the cream, the Pablo cream. If you haven't got the Pablo cream, you can use your polychromos ivory, and the ivory is number 103. And your Pablo cream is 491. And you can see there it's kind of sharpish, not ridiculously sharp. And we're going to start with this. And what we're going to do is we're going to pick out all of the light areas on the deer. Now, I should have, and if I was doing this as like a, you know, a tutorial or a commission, I would have a piece of glassine under my hand, but I'm not going to put a piece of glassine under my hand because it will kind of, you won't be able to see anything. So really you should be working with like a bit of glassine under your hand. And I'm going to start off in this top corner up here, this top left corner. And what we're going to do is we're just going to bring a line in down the side of that horn there where you can see this lovely bit of light shining in. I've also got my kneadable eraser here. So I use the Faber-Castell one. It comes in a little box. I have to have a hiding place for it now because the dogs like to eat them. And I use the whole thing. I don't pull little bits off, and I just hold it like it's another tool, and I just sort of knead it in my fingers like that. And if I just need to dab off a little bit of the colour on my line art, I can. I used the walnut brown to draw my line art with. And this is the dark grey pastel mat that I've used. And I'm just going to literally dab gently over that area there. And then I'm going to come in with my Pablo cream and we're just going to draw a line. That's all we're going to do. We're just going to draw. And I'm going to go backwards and forwards rather than just drawing an actual line. I'm going to draw the line by just going backwards and forwards. So I'm putting a couple of layers in at the same time. So just a nice sweeping mark through here, making sure that you can see what I'm doing in there, and then a little bit sort of through into that bendy bit there where it goes into the next bit of the horn. And that's our first bit of the mark done. Next, I'm going to come onto this part of the horn here. We're just going to work our way around and just bring in those little light areas. It's quite nice to do this when you're working on a darker background because it kind of gives you an illusion that you've actually done quite a lot. You know, once we get going, you've done quite a lot, and it also gives the illusion of structure as well quite quickly. You can do it. On a white surface or a lighter surface with the darks as well if you like, but on dark surfaces this is kind of how I start. So I'm going to do the same. I'm just going to bring a little bit of that up there. Nice gentle pressure. You don't want to be using hard pressure. Like I say, the Pablo is quite a velvety pencil, so the lay down on the pastel mat is really, really nice on those initial layers of colour. It's just works really nicely. I'm going to come into there. My line art's missed out this little bit of it's like a little bit of a horn behind it. Just put that in there. And then again, we just come down here. And if anybody's working on the anthracite pastel mat, this is going to look really, really fabulous. And then what I'm doing down here, can you see how I'm just sort of like doing like little dots? So I'm bringing a little bit of that cream in, but I'm not pulling a whole line in. It's sort of, it's a little bit softer. Oh, and look here again, I've completely failed to bring in. I've got a big fat horn here and I've actually, anyway, that doesn't matter, I can sort that out. So this bit here comes all the way down. Again, I'm just going to kind of do it as like a dot to dot rather than a solid line. Coming in through here. Sometimes it's quite nice to do these sort of quite speedy drawings rather than, you know, laboriously going through and creating all of the details and everything. It is quite nice to do the speedier ones. And then we're going to come up here and we're actually going to draw this bit of the horn in here. Before I start to colour this bit in, I'm just going to draw the actual shape in, which comes down here. So if you've done what I've done and kind of missed out a whole line, it doesn't matter because you can just add it in afterwards. So I'm just going to bring that in there. And then we're going to come up to the top here and I'm just going to shade in with that the cream. I'm just going to shade that in. Just grab some water. I've got my water this time. I forgot it last time. And then, of course, we can darken this. As we come through the drawing, we can darken it up and we can add in all of the other little bits and pieces in there. And then I've got this little bit down here as well. And then just coming through. This bit we could actually bring a little bit of white in at some point. And then if you look at the photograph, you can see a little bit of texture on the front of the horn. The actual photograph of the deer actually isn't that brilliant. It's not a brilliant photograph. It's not really, really detailed, but I quite like that for more of a, not a speedy drawing, but something that's, you know, a little bit sort of more painterly, less, you know, less overly detailed. So just bringing that in there. And then I'm just going to bring a little bit more of that cream into here as well. So if you're using the polychromos, yours might be just a little bit sharper. The Pablo is quite a velvety pencil, so the laydown is quite soft. And I'm just going to bring in, and I can change my pressure just a little bit in places to make certain areas like a little bit stronger, certain areas a little bit lighter. Okay, and then the next bit is here. Actually, that is quite white, so I'm just going to use my Pablo white in here. And again, I'm just going to come in with my kneadable eraser. And we're just going to bring that little bit of white into here. It's a stronger white around the edge. Don't worry about getting it all exactly the same shape and everything like that. And then just coming down there, which is all good. And then I might just bring a little bit of that white in. Little bit stronger pressure because this is really, really light here. So I might as well just go straight in and get that nice and light. When you're working on a darker surface with coloured pencils, particularly when it's pastel matte, what happens is the lighter colours will show the grain through. It's exactly the same if you kind of take the opposite. If you've got a white sheet of pastel matte and use dark colours, the white comes through. So it looks grainier when you use a lighter colour on the dark pastel matte. If you're using a darker colour, the grain doesn't show as much, so it looks less grainy. That's why actually doing white animals on a dark background, although they pop and they look, you know, amazing, is actually quite tricky to do. Well, it's not tricky, but it means more layers, and it can get to the point where it's almost looks a little bit overworked at times because you've got so much layers in, or so many layers in there. Right, okay, so let's come to these horns down here. So back to my Pablo cream, and we're just going to put the top of this one in here. If you're using a white surface, you can still bring the cream and everything in, but obviously yours isn't going to start sort of popping or looking anything sort of spectacular until you bring your darks in, and then that's going to start to look really quite super. And then I'm going to swap to my white, and I'm going to use my white down through into here. So this actually comes through there. Okay, so don't worry about getting everything absolutely perfect. If you're used to my teaching, you'll know that nothing's perfect. I don't want anything perfect. Nothing that I do is perfect. It's you know, yeah, I draw to a, you know, they end up looking really nice, but they're certainly not perfect. And then I'm going to come up to this horn here, and we'll just bring in that bit in there as well. And again, we can bring those darker shapes in over the top. So I'm just sort of colouring at the minute is basically all I'm doing, concentrating on those light areas where the light's shining. Down here a little bit. And as well, the other thing when we're working with pastel matte, well, any surface actually, we really don't concentrate on the details to begin with. we want to create that nice base of values and colour and get the structure and everything in there, and then the details are kind of that last bit. Okay. Oh, I've got a question here. How do I do my line art? I've actually got a video on YouTube of how I create my line art. Now how I create it, which is so much easier, is I actually create it on an iPad, and then I project that digital file. I've got a projector and I project it down onto the surface, and it's just so much quicker. Because I don't have a huge amount of time, and it's all about speed, not speed, but time saving. If I can save time anywhere, that's how I will do it. Okay, so I'm coming back to the white Pablo, and we're just going to put some of these little, it's like he's got a little crown around the bottom of his horn here. I'm not being really super careful about where these are going. I know that they've got these little knobbly bits on the bottom of the horn, so I'm just drawing some little knobbly bits. I hope that makes sense. I'm all for making stuff up as I go along. And that's one of the reasons why I find it really tricky to draw birds. And if you've been watching me drawing the Western horse recently, I find it quite tricky to do all of the really symmetrical patterns, because my brain just wants to kind of rush on. So I end up sort of making it up as I go along, and that's why birds I find quite hard, because their feathers tend to be really symmetrical. With animals, I can just make the fur up as I go along. So it's all about the look and feel rather than it being exactly the same as the photo. Back with my cream here, and we're just going to bring this little bit of light in on the top of this ear here. We want it to be sort of a little bit fluffy coming off the ear, so we don't want a big strong straight line. It's coming in through there. So all we're doing at the moment is just literally putting those light areas in, and then we're going to come up to this bit of the horn here. I'm going to come in with the white again, and again we're just going to put these little knobbly bits on the bottom here. So these are just little sort of marks, like a little roundy mark, putting in there. And then as we come up and over this one, you can see there is definitely some sort of texture, and we can bring a little bit of that texture in as we're bringing that white in. That's going to help us later on to bring those darker, when we bring the darker colours on, because we've got the texture in there as well. And we can let the texture of the pastel matte come through as well. That kind of comes to sort of there-ish, and then we can go back in with the cream. So cream again. You'll notice I haven't sharpened my pencil yet. I don't tend to sharpen them an awful lot unless I'm doing sort of fine details. I tend to find that just keeping them a little bit blunter helps me actually get more pigment on the surface. But it will come to a point sort of fairly soon where I'll have to sharpen it, because what happens is if you magnified the point of this pencil up, you'd see it kind of, you've got a little tiny point on the end because I've been turning my pencil around, and then you've got all of the bits around it, and you end up not being able to get much pigment out of it when it goes sort of too blunt, especially if you've been twisting your pencil around. So I will sharpen it in a second. Okay, and then back to the white, and we're just going to come through into here. So the difference between the polychromos and the Pablos is basically I guess the ingredients that they use in their pencils. All pencils have got a mixture of wax and oil, and it's the manufacturers they keep it very secret. They're secret recipes basically. The Pablo is sort of quite it's a hard pencil. Both of them are hard, dry pencils. Pablos and polychromos, they're hard, dry pencils, and so that's what I like when I'm using them on pastel mat. They're hard and dry, so I can actually move them around. You put the pigment on the paper and it almost sits on top of the tooth, rather than being a very soft pencil like a Prisma or a Luminance, where they kind of stick to the tooth. In the early stages, you can move Pablos and polychromos around. The main difference really for me is the feel. I'm a very feely person, and the main difference for me is how they actually feel when I put them down on the surface. The Pablos, I can only, the feeling I get from them is they're very velvety. They feel velvety, soft. If I dare say it, almost more akin to a pastel than a coloured pencil. I don't use pastels. Whereas the polychromos are just that little bit harder, and they tend to be, you tend to be able to get sharper lines with them because they're harder, but they're not quite as velvety, if that makes sense. But, you know, there's no right or wrong. I'm going back to my cream now and just bringing a little bit more into here. There's no right or wrong pencil. And there's no right or wrong, you know, what goes down first, how do I mix them? Make the pencils work for you. So if you love Prisma, use Prismas. If you love your Luminance, use Luminance. You know, there's no right or wrong at all. It's just personal preference, really. I'm going to bring a little bit of white into here. And I'm going to bring a little bit of white through into this sort of bigger horn here as well. We're going to spend 2 hours drawing a horn. You realise that, don't you? That's all we're going to be doing. We'll have created a couple of really nice horns. No, we will get down into the face as well. I don't want to go too quickly. I could kind of double my speed on this, but I don't want to go too quickly because I don't want to. You know, we don't need to. We can you know, we can go at a nice speed. Up here, we've got the cream again. Just bringing that into there. Now, the reason I used a darker colour to do my outline instead of a lighter one is because it's actually easier to draw over the top of a light over the top of dark than it is putting your dark over the top of the light, which seems a bit strange. Sometimes when you put a lighter colour pencil down and then you try and cover it with dark, you get a little bit of resist where your darker pencil doesn't actually want to lay down over the top of it. This is very true if you're using polychromos, particularly why I don't recommend using a polychromos white, especially if you're going to put more layers over the top of it, because it's got this resist to it and it actually resists other colours going over the top. So it's fantastic if you put it down first for things like whiskers, because your other pencils are just going to skate over the top of it. But if you actually want to bring another colour in over the top, it can prove a little bit tricky. Okay, back to the white. Let's put a little bit more onto here. Going through there. And down. So we're literally just sort of bringing in those lighter colours, and then when we start to bring the darker ones in, swap again to my creamy colour there, and then I'm going to go white again here. You see how the white actually is going over the top of that walnut brown really nicely, but if I had it the other way around it would be a little bit tricky. I'll just bring a little bit of that white in there, and then I'm going to do the same up here as well. And that's another big reason for me using the Pablos as well, so that I can I don't get so much of a resist. But it is very, very personal. Pencils, surfaces, all of that kind of stuff. You know, so I can sort of show you stuff. I can you know, teach you techniques and everything. And it might work for you, or it might be like, you know what, I don't like this at all. I'm going back to my Prismas or my whatever you're using. You know, because it's definitely horses for courses. What works for one person might not work for another. So I've got another question here from the lovely Vicky. Every time I'm like, my lovely assistant Vicky, I always sort of see, you know, I definitely want to get like a little person walking across the screen, holding up a little question. How many layers does a drawing take? And this again is a very personal thing. So it depends on the subject, it depends on the surface, and it depends on the person drawing it and what kind of a mood you're in. Which might sound a little bit crazy, but you know, your mood and how you are feeling has a massive impact on your drawing, a huge impact. And the same goes, you know, for layers. You know, if you're in a bit of a grumpy mood, you might find that you have to add more layers because maybe things aren't going quite as smoothly as you were hoping they would go. And if you're in a really good mood, like, you know, really positive mindset and everything, you might find that you put fewer layers in because everything's working hunky-dory, which is funny, that, isn't it? But pastel mat will take a lot of layers. That's what we love about pastel mat. It will take a lot of layers. And the reason I love it taking a lot of layers is because it means if I make a mistake, I can layer over the top. So you'll notice in any of my drawings, I don't really make mistakes in the fact that I'm like, oh, I've made a mistake there, I'm going to rub it out. I never rub anything out. I just incorporate. All of my mistakes are incorporated into my drawing. Colour mistakes, you know, something in the wrong place mistakes, they're all incorporated into the drawing. And that's what I love about pastel mat, it's so forgiving. The other reason why it's fantastic, I'm just going to come down this little ear here, why it's fantastic for having lots of layers is because it gives beautiful richness and depth to your drawing. You know, you can layer lots and lots and lots of colours in and create the most beautiful structure, richness, all of that kind of thing. It really, really is lovely. Now, that doesn't mean to say you have to add 3 million layers on every drawing. It might be that, you know, you're drawing on white pastel mat and you're drawing a white animal, and so in places you may only have one layer, you know, or you might have 2 layers. It's, you know, it's very dependent on the subject. It might be that you're working on white pastel mat and you have got sort of like quite a dark animal or quite a complex area. You may end up with 30 layers in that area, but it doesn't mean you've got 30 layers overall. And I think this is kind of what puts a lot of people off using pastel mat. They hear, oh, it takes loads of layers, which then almost equals, oh, you have to put loads of layers in, and you actually really don't. You know, yes, coloured pencil needs layers because they are not particularly opaque, and that's how we mix the colours and everything, by layering and how we create the depth and the structure and everything like that. But lots of layers, 30 layers over everything on a piece is that's not something I would do, only in places, you know. So, and then you get the opposite of pastel mat, which would be drafting film. I'm just going to bring a little tiny bit into here of the cream. It's not bright, but it's just a nice little bit of sort of lighter colour into here. You get the opposite, which is the drafting film, and that will take 15, 20 layers. You know, if you're really, really light-handed, do you need 15 to 20 layers? No. You really don't need 15 to 20 layers on drafting film. And I tend to look at my drafting film pieces very much differently to how I would look at my pastel mat pieces. So my pastel mat pieces, I would build from the sort of, if I'm drawing an animal, from the skin outwards, if you like. You know, I forget the details and I go straight in and I draw what's underneath and all of the lovely base layers with the values and everything like that. With drafting film, I tend to go straight in and try and get everything looking pretty much as it should look from the beginning, unless it's something like spaniel ears, where it does take a little bit more work and building the lights and everything like that in. But if I was drawing you know, something like this, I would go straight in with the darks. I go really, really dark in places, you know, and it's just because the surface is so different. And then of course you've got the stuff in between, which is like your you know, your hot press papers, your vellums, that kind of thing, where again it's actually really, really good idea. I'm just coming over here and just doing this little bit over that eye socket there, that lumpy bit, and I'm using my pencil in a curve so it looks like it's actually curving around the eye socket there. I'm coming down to here. Yeah, those hot press papers and vellums, you know, you still need to build all of that lovely, the values and everything like that as well, and then bring the details in later. But again, they take fewer layers. So pastel mat does have a lot of layers. Right, let's go over here. So I'm going to come round here, and I'm just bringing these. They're not quite as light as the ivory, as the cream here, but we can bring a little bit of the burnt ochre in when we're ready to. And then I'm going to bring. Just going to look at that goes there. Ah, that's here. I was going to bring it in the wrong place there actually. So again, even though I've got my line drawing here on the paper, I must concentrate on my reference photo because it's very easy to pick up the wrong line. This little line here, I don't know if you can see that. I saw that as the eye to begin with. I was like, oh, I've not completed that bit of the eye. It's not the eye at all. It's like a bit next to the eye, but it's really easy to pick up on the wrong lines. I will blow this up in a sec once we've got all of these light bits in. Okay, and then I'm just going to bring a little bit of the structure of the ear in there. You see how my pencil strokes have gone. I'm kind of going a little bit round and round, getting those little woolly bits in there. Just going up there a little bit, just to get an idea of that structure and everything into this bit in here, and then through here as well. So it's quite loose, it's quite sketchy to begin with, which I do like. I think it's quite a nice thing to do. And then let's just come onto the back area here, and I'm going to use my white again. So I projected this line art. I've been using a projector for quite a long time now. I used to freehand everything, and then I discovered that there were other ways of being able to get my line art down. And actually, naturally, I don't use a line art. Naturally, I just start drawing, and I would tend to start with an eye or something like that. And that was how I basically, you know, when I started drawing 8 years ago, I can't believe it's 8 years. Can you believe it's 7 years ago today that I became a full-time artist? I can't believe it. Yeah, so I used to sort of just draw what I saw. I didn't draw a line art at all. And then I realized that other people were drawing line arts and they were using you know, tracing and everything. And I was like, oh my goodness, I'm definitely getting into this. I tried doing grid. I tried gridding. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing here. I'm just kind of bringing those light areas in on the back. I tried gridding, and my little old brain could not get the hang of gridding. I don't know why, I just could not get the hang of it at all. And then I started to use trace down paper, which you know, I think a lot of artists do use, and I found it really messy. It was probably me, to be fair, other than the actual trace down paper, and it's like a transfer paper. But I found it was really messy, and I just got blotches everywhere, and it was just like, ugh, and I didn't like it when it got on my fingers and stuff. And then I discovered projectors, and I bought a couple of projectors, really quite cheap ones. And actually, if I'd known now what I knew back then, the cheap ones would have been absolutely fine. But what I was doing, I was actually projecting my whole photograph. So a cheap projector doesn't have the resolution. When I'm coming down here, I'm literally just going backwards and forwards, and I'm just kind of bringing in that little bit of a curve in down here on the shoulder area. I know it's got a bit of brown in there, and we can put that in over the top, but for the minute, that's quite a nice highlighty bit that we can put in. Yeah, so I used to project my whole image, and of course, when you've got a projector that isn't high resolution, it's all pixelated. You can't see anything, you can't see any details, and it was very, very frustrating. So I bought the projector that I've got now actually second hand from Canada, and I've got the Artograph Inspire 1200, which they don't make anymore, which is a bit sad. But now that I project my line art, so I create my line art on my iPad, and then I project that digital file. I can use a really cheap projector. I still use my Artograph, but I could use a really cheap one, because all you've got is the line then. It's still a little bit pixelated, but you're not trying to pick up all of the tiny details. So that was a big thing for me to sort of get my head around. Technology, you know, when they bring out all of these different things, and it's like, oh, it can be quite overwhelming, I think, you know, trying to kind of get your head around stuff. But yeah, so this was one that I projected. I actually recommend the Pico Genie projectors. They come in 3 different makes, and they can connect directly to your phone as well, which is really, really useful. Mine's quite a big clunky thing, but yeah. Okay, so I'm just going to come in. Can you see how I'm just sort of bringing in a little bit of that fur in there? And he is starting to definitely make an appearance out of the darkness on this. I have to say, Yorkshire has got some blue skies today, which let's hope that's a good sign for 2024. Don't know whether anybody was out celebrating yesterday. I went to bed I think it was a bit in bed by about 11:45, and then my daughter rang me, FaceTime me at 12:30. She's in Edinburgh, and singing Happy New Year down the phone. So, and then I had that was it. Yesterday I had a day at the vets with poor Nellie, because she'd eaten something, and then something that she shouldn't have. So they had to sedate her and then go and retrieve whatever she'd eaten, and then they couldn't find anything, which is always the case, isn't it? Oh. Thank you very much, Mrs. Snowdon. That'll be £500. We couldn't find a thing, but Nellie's fine. So yeah, that was all fun. Right, let's now move over to the face area and bring some of that white in there as well. I'm going to stick with the white. I'm going to sharpen my white here, so I'm just going to put it in my pencil sharpener there. So my pencil sharpener I use is the Swordfish Multi, and then I also have a little tiny handheld. It's a KUM magnesium as well. But I love my Swordfish Multi-Point. It's fabulous. Right, so we're going to start to bring a little bit of the light through into the face area here. I'm going to start with a little bit of a catch light in the eye here. We're going to put another little bit in there as well. And we're going to use really nice light pressure. And what we've got to be really careful about is that we don't put white over everything. We're drawing texture now. So we're going in and we're just drawing texture. So nice light pressure. We're looking at the direction that the fur is going in. And we're just kind of building the fur a little bit like that. We're going to bring the darks in over the top. So just sort of following some strange stuff. Deer's heads are really weird. They're very, very, very hard. And they've got all sorts of, the furs going in all sorts of different directions up here. So I'm just going to come across up to here. I'm sitting way back, so I'm not really close up. I tend to sit sort of quite well away back from my drawing, unless I'm drawing really, really, really tiny little details. And I think that I've got into the habit of that anyway from recording an awful lot of my videos, because if I get really close up, you can't see, because I wear this funny little hat. So my iPad, so I've got a couple of iPads. I've got the one that I'm using now for my I use it as for all the photos to draw from. That's actually, I don't know what actual series it is, but it's a refurbished one. So it didn't, my other one broke. So I bought a refurbished one because I only really use it for photographs, really. And that one it was a couple of £100. It wasn't very, I mean, obviously it's expensive, but it wasn't crazy. And then I have my iPad Pro. And that's the one that I do all of my line arts on and watch Netflix on. But it's great, the iPad Pro, because it's got the Apple Pencil on the screen, and it's you know, it's quite big, and it's got the keyboard and everything attached to it. And then, so this is a really good question. What are the best pencils to start with? Now, when I first started drawing 8 years ago, I started, the first pencils I had were W.H. Smith ones. I got those on Christmas morning, and I started doing my colouring books. A week later, I had realised that they just weren't pigmented enough for what I wanted. I was just, you know, kind of fighting a losing battle, really. And that's when I think I got a full set of the Caran d'Ache Prismalo, which are their sort of entry-level watercolour pencils, I think. Really nicely pigmented, and they were super. And I used those until I then started sort of doing my own, oops, it's my mum ringing me, doing my own drawings. And then I think it was when I started joining groups and seeing what other people were using, and these polychromos kept on coming up, and I was like, what are these polychromos? And do some research and everything, and I bought a full set of polychromos, and literally it was just like, oh my goodness, these pencils are amazing, absolutely amazing. I would say if you can afford the more artist quality pencils, like polychromos, like luminance, like Prismas are great pencils, then I would buy the best you can possibly afford, because they do make a big difference. If you are on a budget, then I would recommend something like the Lyra Polycolor. Now, the Lyra Polycolor do come in separate, you know, you can buy them as singles, and that's another thing to be really, really aware of. Now, I'm whittering on about stuff because I want to answer all of your questions, but I just need to talk about this bit coming down here. So this is really important, and I'm going to switch to my cream down here. This is all very, very much in the light coming down here. So I'm going to switch to my cream Pablo, and I'm going to sharpen it. So I'm just going to put that onto no, don't disturb. My daughter's now texting me asking if we've got bananas. Yeah, so what you want to be looking for in a pencil, I think, is can you buy them in singles? Now, when I'm coming down here, I'm using little tiny pencil strokes. I want to try and fill as much tooth as possible, but use nice light pressure. So instead of going in too hard to get the brilliance of the colour, I'm actually using very, very small pencil strokes. So I'm filling the tooth just by using tiny pencil strokes. You want to see if the pencils that you are going to be using, you can buy them in singles, because when you run out of your pencils, you don't really want to have to buy another full set. And the Lyra Polycolor, which are a more budget pencil, do come in single. You can buy them in single pencils, and I think that's quite an important factor. You know, when thinking about what pencils you're going to buy, the artist quality ones, you can buy all of those in singles. Polychromos, Luminance, Prisma, Pablo, you can buy all of those in singles. Holbein, you know. The Castle Art, I don't think you can. The Arteza, I don't like the Arteza, but you can't buy those in singles either. So it's, you know, I think you need to sort of weigh up those sorts of things when you're deciding on what pencils you're going to be using. So I know, or she did, but I know that Emma at the Colour Pencil Shop, she does the Lyra Polycolour singles, and they're a nice pencil as well. They are a nice pencil. You know, they're nicely presented. They've got a good case, all of that kind of stuff. Okay, so I'm just going to come down here again. We've got all of this lovely light coming down on this side of the deer. I might just blow his little face up here, actually. Let's see if we can just blow him up a bit. Hold on. Might need to move him. Oops. There we go. That's a little bit better. And then you can actually see what we're doing. Deers have got really, really strange faces. They've got all the knobbly bits and everything on. So we're just going to come down there. I'm just going to bring a little bit of that cream in here. You can see my pencil is just going backwards and forwards all of the time. Very, very much a sort of the sketchy pencil strokes. And then we're just going to come around the muzzle area here. And you can see when you blow the photograph up, it's not a fantastic photo. You can't see all of the details, but what you can see are all of the values in there, which is great. Okay, just coming down through here onto his face. I'm going to stick with that white, I think, on the actual face area. And then we'll use the walnut brown in there. You could use all sorts of colours, you know, in here. I've only chosen a small handful of colours just so that we can make it a little less complicated. Again, I'm kind of working with the direction of the fur. And then we'll come to the nose area here. I'll work out what's going on here. Right, so we've got a little bit of the nose there. Just going to bring that little bit of highlight in there. I've got a little bit of highlight in there. Mine's sort of rubbed off a little bit. A bit of a highlight there. Bit of a highlight there, I think. And then we've got this sort of curved bit in the middle there. That's it. And then down on the bottom bit of the, and then when we start to bring the dark, block the darks in, then that's going to really start to, let's go in there. This is the cream that I'm using here. Put that little bit of light on the side of the mouth there. And then what we've got is we've got the muzzle actually comes right out, which didn't really see on the line art. So we come down here, which is the side of the face. And the muzzle comes so right out there. And in there. Might have to do a bit of tweaking around there. It looks a little bit lopsided, but oh, it's all right. And then let's just put a little bit of the light areas in there. Light areas in there. So it's starting to kind of look, I think, quite nice, particularly on the dark and everything. Okay, why am I switching between cream and light and white? Because some of the areas I'm seeing as really quite bright light, and some of the areas I'm seeing as actually have got like a bit of colour to them. So I'm just sort of bringing a little bit of variation in. Really, it doesn't matter that much. Honestly, it's just how I'm feeling. I'm just thinking, you know, I'm just feeling, oh, I'll just put a bit of cream in here. I'll just put a bit of white in there. If I did this next week, I might choose to do it slightly differently. You know, so if you're sort of sitting there and going, oh, I'm just going to use cream or I'm just going to use white, go for it. It honestly really doesn't matter. And I'm just going to bring a little bit, this is the cream up here. Just a little bit of that in there. And then I'm just going to bring these little tufty bits onto the head area. I've got some lines on the line art, which don't really make a huge amount of sense. So I'm just sort of freehanding here and just bringing these little bits of lumps and bumps and everything in, just bringing those little highlighty bits in. there, and then just pulling that down there as well. Good. Okay, and then we can come down to the little chest area where there's actually not a huge amount of light on here at all. Let me just bridge that up a little bit. Let's move up. And we've got all of this lovely light coming down the side, so I'm going to use my white for that. And this is sort of just tufting off. You know, we've got the little tufts of the stray bits of hair coming off. So I'm going to kind of incorporate that in with what I'm drawing. I might bring a little bit of cream into there, but and you just want to, when you bring stray hairs off over the edge, you want them to be sort of nice and gentle. So you want your pressure to be the initial part of your line, and then you lift and flick your pencil up so that you get these sort of nice flicky lines coming off. They're going to look a little bit rough to begin with because we've only got like one layer in there on the dark grey pastel mat. But you know, we want it to be sort of like a little bit fluffy down there. What you don't want is a big strong line. You want this, you know, you want this sort of softness coming off the edge there. So I always draw from an iPad. It means I can zoom in. I never draw from a reference photo. I like to have, I draw on an angle. So I have my iPad on a gooseneck holder and I draw from that. And it just means that I can zoom in on different areas. And it also means that my colours are pretty standard across from my Mac screen and my iPad. They all tend to be sort of pretty standard rather than having to print something out and, you know, trying to make it match what's on a screen. So that's how I've always, when I first started drawing, I drew from my phone. I literally held my phone in one hand and drew with the other. So I like working from a screen. The downside of that, I think, is that we zoom in, whereas we can't zoom in on our drawing. It's the drawing is the drawing, you know. And if you've got sort of like an iPad and you can zoom in, you're kind of working on all of these little tiny details that actually don't mean a huge amount because you know, people are going to be looking at your drawing at the size that it's drawn at. Okay, just putting a little bit of light in there, and then we're going to pick up our dark pencil. So I'm going to use, so similar to the white and the cream, we're going to go with the black and the dark sepia. These are going to be our next pencils that we use. So I'm just going to reduce this back down again so we can see the whole thing, and we're just going to start to add some of those darks. So let's just zoom back out. Just going to move it. I've got magnets holding my my pastel mat too. Zoom it out a bit more. There we go. Yeah, I've got magnets holding my pastel mat onto my drawing board. So let's pop that there. Right, so let's start with the dark sepia. So the dark sepia is number 175. And I'm actually going to bring my glassine paper in just because I don't want to smudge all of the stuff that I've done. So apologies for that. Move this here. And we're just going to start up on this top bit up here. So this is quite, oh, actually, let's just bring a little bit of that cream in and just bring that, we didn't bring that in, did we? Let's just colour that in with the cream. Down there, and then let's just do a little bit more, and that one on there. That's it. Okay. So dark sepia, and we're just going to start to bring in this darker colour. So it will feel different to your lighter colours. So you can see again, I'm holding my pencil quite sort of in the middle of the pencil. This is a new pencil, brand new pencil. So I'm kind of in the middle there. It means that I've got leverage. It means I can move it around, but it also means that I can't put too much pressure on it. And we're just going to come in down here. Now you can see on the photograph there's an awful lot of texture in the horn, and if we were going for it and spending hours and hours on this drawing, we might go in with all of those details and everything, but actually we can use the surface of the pastel mat to make it look like it's got texture. And I do this all of the time. I'm drawing a horse at the moment that's got leather. It's got smooth leather, and then it's got, you know, the underside of leather that hasn't been treated. And using the surface of the pastel mat to create the feeling of the texture on the untreated leather works beautifully. And the same can be said for using it for things like horns. Underneath of horses' eyes, you know, where you've got the very, very short velvety fur. Again, you know, using the texture of your surface, the surface like pastel mat, can be really, really, really helpful. So we've got some darker areas and we've got some lighter areas. We've actually got quite a dark area coming down here, and we're going to use the black for that. But at the moment, we're just going to bring in that dark sepia. We might bring a little bit of walnut brown in there as well. But what I want to do is I just want to sort of fill in the darks and the lights, just so that you can see actually that you could do pieces like this that don't take a huge amount of time. You know, sometimes you might just go, do you know what, I just want to draw today and I want to finish something. And doing it with using these sorts of techniques can be really, really satisfying. Just coming down here, you can see there's a little bit of brown in there, so we can bring some brown in a bit. So this is pastel mat that I'm using. It's the Clairefontaine pastel mat. Clairefontaine are the only manufacturers of pastel mat. So if you buy something that's pastel mat and it's not made by Clairefontaine, or it's not got the Clairefontaine sort of emblem on it, it isn't pastel mat. Pastel mat is a trademarked product. And it comes in sheets and pads and boards, and the surface of all of those, regardless of whether it's a sheet, a pad or a board, the surface is identical. The frustrating thing about pastel mat is that there are parameters of quality, as you'll get with anything that sort of has a handmade element to the production. And it means that you'll get a variety of graininess to the surfaces. So you might get a surface that seems super, super, super smooth, and then you might get a surface that actually feels like it's got much more grain to it. There has been an issue recently with some batches from 2022. I actually had a conversation with them, which was really useful actually, and they pulled their production until they'd kind of got a sort of like, you know, a piece that was acceptable basically. Yeah, so it's kind of, you can't choose what you get, sadly, and you can have some pieces that are a little bit grainy. You get other kinds of pastel paper. I'm just going to take my black, the polychromos black here. I'm just going to come down the edge here. I want this to be a lot darker. I want this to have this nice shadow coming down here. So you can get other pastel papers, all sorts of different papers, the I can never pronounce them, the engrais, the miton, the, you know, that kind of thing. And some people love those, and some people just don't get on with them at all. And it's again, it's a very personal thing as to, you know, what works for you. But for me, the only pastel paper that I use is the pastel mat, and it works incredibly well for coloured pencil. Yes, it takes lots of layers, but then, you know, if you're working on hot press paper, smooth paper, that takes lots of layers as well. You know, you need to build your layers up. So it's only really drafting film that you can get away with not very many layers at all. My preference is pastel mat. I love pastel mat. It's my techniques kind of work really well with pastel matte, and I just like how it all sort of builds up. Okay, so we're bringing that in there, and then I'm just going to go back to my dark sepia. I'm going to bring a little bit of the walnut brown in, I think, as well. And you can see here as well, we've got a little bit of texture in here. So I'm just gently bringing a little bit of that texture in. You'll notice I haven't got any other greys, so I haven't chosen like a warm grey 2 or a cold grey or anything like that. I'm just sticking with these basic pencils, really, just to show you that you can just use, you know, just a handful. My preference is to use hundreds of pencils, but you know, it is still possible to use just a handful. And then we're going to bring the walnut brown in. So the walnut brown's a really nice brown. It's considered a warm brown, a reddy brown. There's reddy tints in there. This is number 177. Not overly sharp, as you can see there. So I prefer to use the sort of the blunter pencils. And I'm just going to bring a little bit of that warm walnut brown through on top of the cream, which is going to make it a little bit beigey. Through into here, there's a little bit of a line there as well. And then coming down, I'm just going to kind of colouring over the top of the greys and everything that we've got there, and it's just going to lift it a little bit and just make it a little bit more warm. And in there as well. And we've got a tiny little bit of a light coming down there, so I'm just going to bring just a little tiny bit of white. And then I'm just going to use my, don't know whether it's going to come off, but my kneadable eraser just to sort of tidy up that line a little bit. Excuse me. Okay, and then we're going to move on to this little bit of the horn here now as well. Actually, just bring a little bit more of that. There's the white coming in there. Okay, so dark sepia again. Let's come up into this bit of the horn. You'll probably be able to hear the graininess of it as well. So I'm just going backwards and forwards. So I'll stop here because I want to bring some of that brown up into there. It's coming down around here. And then I'm going to use my walnut brown down into this bit here. So again, let's bring a little bit of the dark sepia in there. We need to bring some more of that creamy colour into here as well. So you can see my pencil is kind of just going backwards and forwards, these little tiny pencil strokes, just to get that nice texture. And you'll also see that it kind of crosses over, you know, those sort of lovely markings on the horn. Coming down here, and then this gets really, really dark. So I'm going to bring the dark sepia in first and then the black over the top. And then we'll bring a little bit of the walnut brown in onto this light area here. It's coming through there. And you can see the texture coming through. And it does work so nicely. You know, letting the texture kind of work for you. I think it's really easy to get frustrated with something like pastel matte and work against the surface, you know, the graininess and everything, and it then becomes like a massive battle. And actually, it's so much nicer to work with it, you know, to actually have it working for you. And once you sort of get over that, you know, that sort of feeling of, oh my goodness, this feels horrible, and you realise what pastel matte can do and how you can use it, it's an amazing surface. So I'm just going to come down there again, making that up as I go along because I haven't got the line in. And then it all becomes really quite dark down here at the bottom. Probably going to have to sharpen my pencil in a second. And then we're just going to move up here. So there's lots and lots and lots of different ways of using your colour pencils. So there's a question here: how do you stop your arm from aching? Now this could be happening for a couple of reasons. It could be happening because your posture isn't correct. It could be happening. I'm just going to switch to my black and I'm going to sharpen this. It could be happening because you are pressing too hard. It could be happening because maybe you're not resting your arm properly. Could be that you're moving your wrist around quite a lot. There could be an awful lot of things, but if your arm is aching, then you need to take notice of it. Don't ignore it. If you ignore stuff, it tends to come back and bite you on the bum. So you're better off addressing it, straight away and doing something about it. So doing arm exercises is a really, really good idea. I don't tend to get aching arms unless I've been using a hot press paper, and then I get really aching arms. I also wear, I don't think I've got it in here. No, it's in the other room. I wear like a little elbow brace sometimes. So if I get an aching wrist, like carpal tunnel syndrome, or I get sort of like almost like tennis elbow-y type thing, I'll wear like a little elbow brace, and it's a back on track elbow brace, and it works brilliantly. Just keeps that area warm, it keeps it supported, and that really, really, really does help. But yeah, I think making sure that you are quite wise with how you're working, and making sure that you don't work for too long, without sort of moving around and all of that kind of stuff. So doing some arm exercises, definitely. So I'm just coming down here and just darkening this area down here. So I hope you're enjoying it. Do let me know. Well, if you're drawing, don't let me know that you're enjoying it, because you'll have to stop drawing to type in, yeah, I'm enjoying it. I know we're not doing sort of like little intricate details or anything like that, but hopefully you can see it starting to come to life. And I think this is a really nice method of drawing something, relatively quickly, or to get a nice spectacular result relatively quickly. And then of course you can build up all of the other colours on the top of it, but the structure and everything is pretty much there right from the off. So let's darken up this bit here. And the other thing that's nice about this as well is that I'm not worrying about the grain. I'm not getting all, jittery that I've got grain coming through. I'm just enjoying my pencils. I'm just enjoying being creative and putting pencil to paper, and just having a nice time. So I've done so much drawing this last week, I can't tell you. I had to stop because my eyes were going a little bit googly. I've been drawing sort of like 10 hours a day, which is not, I wouldn't recommend that, but I've been loving it so much. I've been drawing this Western horse, and it's just been absolutely fantastic. The leather work, and I'm now onto the ladies' jeans. So that's exciting. But honestly, I think, if you draw for a living, or if art is something that you do on a regular basis, it's really, really important to find something that's going to keep you feeling amazing about it. I think that's really, really important. Right, walnut brown. Let's bring a little bit of the walnut brown into here. through into there. I can't believe it's back to normal tomorrow. I feel like taking another couple of weeks of Christmas off. It's been so nice. Coming down here, so nice and gently down here, because we don't want to sort of just block it all in. Might bring a little bit of lighter, the white in over the top of that as well, actually. Just make that nice and gentle down here. I also might bring a little bit of that burnt ochre in too. And then I'm going to bring some of that walnut brown down through into here. Now, if you've got other colours and you're going, oh, I'm going to add some pink in here, or I'm going to add some yellow in here, please, please, please do, you know, make this your own. But, you know, the basics, how you've started, can be with the lights and the darks. I think it's really important, you know, to find your style. And it's funny. I mean, even if, so I teach a lot of people, and, you know, we've lots and lots of people do my tutorials, and not one person's piece comes out exactly the same as mine. It's impossible. You are always going to put your personality, your stamp, whether you want to do or not. You are always going to put your personality and stamp onto a piece. So, you know, I think it's important to recognize that even if you're following a tutorial, you're not going to copy somebody. You're not going to become, you know, another Bonny or another whoever. You're going to be you. Yes, you might be drawing the same piece, but you know, you can't possibly create something exactly the same as mine. Many of my students create stuff that are way better than mine, because I've been doing the tutorial, and they've kind of been getting stuck into it and doing their own thing and bringing all of it, you know. So I think it's really, really important to sort of, you know, get that and understand it. Right, I'm going to bring a little bit of the orange in, and I'm going to sharpen it first. So this is the burnt ochre. The ochre colours have got that sort of browniness in them. So it's, if you compare it to sort of like an orangey orange, so that's a terracotta next to it, which is much more orangey orange. And we're just going to bring a little tiny bit of this in into some of the areas here as a glaze. So we're just using very light pressure, and we're just bringing a tiny, tiny amount of this sort of orangey colour in, just to give it a little bit of a lift. Just going to put a little bit up there as well. So very gently bring a little bit into there. You can see I'm holding it way back. I like to put my finger in that bit in here, holding it right back, and then just literally glazing it. I can't put pressure on when I hold it way back like that. And then I'm just going to bring a little bit into there. A little bit in here. If I want to actually make a mark, I can move my hand right down to the end of the pencil, and then I can go harder and go, I want a really nice little orangey bit in there, and I can just go a little bit harder, and then it will show up, and then I go back to being softer. So I'm just going to come into here and through into here. I want to come, I'm actually going to move on to the face, because what I want you to be able to do is, you know, finish this, complete this. The drawing that we did, the robin that we did, so many people messaged me and said, oh, when are we doing the next bit? And I'm like, no, you know, you can finish it on your own. And they were like, oh no, I don't think I can. And I was like, no, you definitely can. Oh my goodness, the amount of incredible robins that have been finished. It's amazing, absolutely amazing. And I think if you're going to do anything in 2024, make it the year where you say, actually, do you know what? I'm going to give it a go, and I'm going to try. You know, not, I can't possibly. Because as soon as you change that attitude and it's like, do you know what, I'm going to do this and I'm going to try, it just has such a massive impact on everything. Right, so let's go with black. No, let's go with dark sepia. and we'll sharpen it. Mine's way too dull, so we'll sharpen it. If I look back, actually, at when I first started drawing back in 2016, we're going to do these little eyes, and we're just going to colour them in black. There is a little bit of an eyelash there. So we're just going to bring a little bit of an eyelash. In fact, I'm going to zoom into his little face again. Oops. Hang on. Let me just make sure that we've got him in the... There we go. Just sharpen him up. Okay, so we've got a little bit of an eyelash there. And then we've got these nice... when you're looking at an animal like a deer or a horse from the front, it's really, 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 really important to get the shape and the structure correct. A lot of the time, when I see this kind of animal, prey animal, horse, deer, drawn from the front, what happens is we bring the eyes into the front. The eyes are actually set on the side of the head. The deer eyes are sort of slightly more to the front, but they're still very much on the side of the head. We've got to be really careful about how we portray these. So if you look at your the eye, if you zoom into that little eye here, the curve is actually very minimal. It's the angle is sort of like that. It's not a big round bulbous eye. It's actually really, really minimal, and we've got to be very careful. Even if you've got your line art, your brain will try and draw the eye differently, but it's more like I don't know if you can see it, but it's more like a little kingfisher shape. Got a little beak and the little fat body. That's what it looks like. And you've got to be so careful that your eyes are the correct shape and size, because if there's anything that's going to ruin a drawing, it's eyes that are the incorrect shape, or set sort of slightly incorrectly on the head. So I'm just going to come into there like that. So we've got some nice eyes there. Mine's on a little bit of an angle. And with this eye here, I'm going to take my white again. We're just going to make sure we've got that nice little catch light in the eye there. This eye is basically black. So we don't need to bring anything else in. We don't need to do anything. We don't need to go, oh no, I'm going to lighten it up to see what details. No, we're just going to make it black or dark sepia. So tiny little pencil strokes and fill that little eye in. I know it's tiny. There we go. Maybe not even need that second little bit of a catch light. And then we've got that little bit of an eyelash there. And then we've got this bit down here that's kind of coming down. And then you can see underneath that, there's a little tiny bit of light underneath on the top of the eyelid. So I'm just going to sharpen my white. And I'm just going to bring a tiny little bit, oops, in there. And then we're going to come underneath that. I'm just having to lean in a bit so I can see it. And then it kind of comes. So it's what I mean about the dark not wanting to go in over the top of the light. There we go. And that's all we need on that little eye. We don't need anything else. The other eye has got a little bit of orange in it. So what I'm going to do first of all is, and you can see a little tiny bit of the pupil in there as well. I'm just going to make that little catch light a little bit bigger. And I'm just going to bring a little bit down there. And I'm also just going to bring... And then I'm going to use my dark sepia. Quite dark where you can actually sort of see that pupil area. Deers have got pupils like horses and sheep. They're horizontal. And I'm going to pull that down here, and then I'm going to bring a little bit of the orange in. Now, the orange that I've chosen isn't the richness of what's in the eye here, but it'll be fine. Just going to bring a little bit of that burnt ochre in there, and then just a tiny little bit of the walnut brown over the top, just to sort of, so we've got an orangey colour in there, but it's there. And that's it. That's it for that eye. We don't need to do any more. I'm just going to make the catch light just a little tiny bit smaller. Okay. All right. Okay. So drawing on anthracite pastel mat. Please don't panic. You're kind of ahead of everybody anyway, because you've got all of the dark that you can see. You definitely will be able to see it, but if you're struggling to see any of this, just use a slightly lighter colour. So use your walnut brown instead. We're actually going to start to use the walnut brown in on the face here, but you know, don't panic too much. You still do need to have those darker colours in, but you can kind of combine them with a little bit of the light. So when we're coming to do the ear area here, I'm just going to put a little bit of that light on the tip of the ear. So if you're using anthracite pastel mat, you can bring that the white bit in here. Which is on there. The reason that you can't see your dark colours on the anthracite is because it's really, really dark. And that's okay. You'll be able to see your light colours. Your dark colours will be there. You know, it'll just be more atmospheric. So don't worry too much. I'm going to bring my dark sepia in, and we're just going to bring a little bit of that here and there. If you're panicking that you can't see this on your anthracite, you could use the walnut brown instead. But to be honest, you kind of need it nice and dark anyway. And you will definitely be able to see it. You might not be able to sort of, you know, recognize it as a color, but you'll see the pencil marks on it. And then I'm just going to come around the outside of that ear there, coming through into here, and then I'm going to bring some of that walnut brown into here as well. And then let's just darken through in there. And then I'm going to use my burnt ochre again. I'm just going to bring a little bit of burnt ochre into here. Again, when you look at the photograph, there's like yellows in here and sort of reds and all of that kind of stuff. We're not using that. We're just using what we've got. And I'm going to bring a little bit of that. And I'm going to bring a tiny little bit of that burnt ochre through into the ear area here as well. And into the middle. You can see in the middle bit there, there's actually some sort of pinky colours. I'm going to bring the walnut brown back in over the top of that. So another question that Vicky's just sort of popped over to me is, how do you twirl your pencil so successfully? To be honest, it's just something that kind of happens. I'm switching back over to my walnut brown now. I think I'm so comfortable with the pencil in my hand. I'm very, very dexterous with the pencil in my hand. Give me a paintbrush and I've absolutely no clue, but a pencil, it just feels like an extension of my hand. And the just sort of how it moves around in my hand, and how I know that I need to go down here or go back here or twist it round. It's a very unconscious thing that I'm doing, and this comes with thousands of hours of drawing, and finding your way of doing things and practice. Certainly when I first started drawing, I didn't have that dexterity or anything like that. You know, it was it's just sort of like come from drawing and practicing. And I think, you know, people can teach techniques, and people can teach, you know, how to sort of recognize colors and mix colors and all of that kind of stuff. when it comes to actually holding your pencil and using it, that's very much down to you and the practice that you are putting in, and playing around with different things. Very, very much down to the individual. And it just becomes an unconscious thing. Right, I'm just going to use my cream in here, and then I'm going to bring the little bit of the burnt ochre over the top of it. So again, just nice and gently. You can see we need to go really quite dark in here so that this bulge stands out. So I'm going to go in with my walnut brown, and we're just going to bring a little sort of softness through into here. And then I want to go darker in here. So I've got my walnut brown, but you can see I've kind of moved my hand a little bit closer to the end of the pencil. So I've got more kind of control over it. I can control where my pencil is actually going down, and I can control how much pressure I'm putting on it. So I'm coming up here and like bringing that sort of little dark area in. And I'm going to bring a little bit of the dark sepia in here. And I'm going to bring some of the dark sepia around here as well. I'm using stronger pressure now so that I get these sort of slightly darker areas. It's your darks and your lights that are going to really, really make something look realistic and make it sort of pop out and give you the structure and everything. And I'm also going to just darken up around here as well. And down here. So I'm using my dark sepia kind of in the place of my black. I can still use my black if I want to. Let's just make this nice and dark down here as well. So pressing a little bit harder with my pressure. So a couple of questions. Do I use a magnifying glass? I don't. However, I do have my glasses are varifocals, the ones that I use for my drawing, and they have a higher magnification down at the bottom. Then I have my normal reading prescription in the middle, and then we kind of worked on them specifically with my optician because I wanted to be able to look from a distance and look really close up, and that's kind of what we were working with. Right, I'm just going to use my walnut brown here. I'm just going to work a little bit into the top of the head here. So again, just nice and gently. So they really, really help the varifocals. But I only use them for my drawing. I don't use them for anything else. And it just means that everything's just that little bit clearer when I get closer. They did take some getting used to though. So just coming on the head here. So we're just sort of working around the little bits of highlight. So the other question was, some people are working on different papers, which is absolutely fine. And that's one of the reasons why I'm not going hell for leather and trying to get all of the masses of layers in, because I kind of understand that the people may be using like Fabriano black, or, something like that, or a toned paper. So you would do exactly the same that we're doing here, and it will work, or it should be working the same, because I'm not really using pastel matte to the capacity that I would normally do. We're just sort of adding a couple of layers in rather than, really going crazy using light over dark, all of that kind of stuff. So, you should be able to get something pretty similar. Just coming in here with this sort of dark block here. And then just, you can see my pencil marks are sort of following the direction of the fur pretty much. And it's coming in through there. This is where you'd maybe want to bring some pinks and reds and stuff like that in, you know, if you were sort of, and some sanguine colours. I'm very much into my sanguine at the moment. It's a beautiful pinky orange. It's worked really, really nicely for the leather work that I'm doing at the minute. It's really lovely. And it's, so in the, I shared the work in progress in my Ignite group, my membership group. And of course we've now got, oh, can we have a tutorial? Can we have a tutorial? Because I haven't done this latest drawing as a tutorial. So now I've actually been looking for some more Western photographs so I can actually do a tutorial. So I don't know whether to do like I've got a really beautiful one of a saddle, a Western saddle with loads of fantastic detail. And I don't know whether to do something like that or to do something that's got the horse in it as well, because you can't really see the horse in the saddle one. But I think that would be quite nice to do, I have to say. So hopefully you can sort of get the feeling of this, the fur. That's all you need really on the top of the head here, is getting the feeling of that fur going in different directions. You know, you don't have to get it exact. Don't worry about getting it exact, but it's just about getting it in those little different directions. And then I'm going to come back in again with that orangey colour, the burnt ochre, and we're just going to bring some of those orangey bits in here and up here. We can bring a little bit over the top of the darker colour in there as well. And then we'll come into the head area, into the face area, and we'll get that, you know, in. And then I want to come back in again and darken up some of those bits. So going back in with that walnut brown, and again, really concentrating on the direction of the fur. Try to be a little bit sketchy. Sometimes I know it can feel a little bit alien, a little bit strange, but if you just add a little bit more movement into your pencil strokes, you're going to get more life into your drawings rather than everything being, you know, perfectly perfect. Animals aren't perfect. Nothing's perfectly perfect. So it's quite nice to have that little bit of life in there. So we're going to draw this first, or add this colour in first, and then we're going to come back in again and darken some of those areas so that we start to see a little bit more structure in the face. So I'm just literally going backwards and forwards, trying to get that nice texture in. Coming up here. You can see around the eyes, they've got those really, really dark areas around the eyes, and we do need to capture that. So the white sort of sitting underneath, and the white's really helping with all of that texture as well. Okay, let's just a little bit in around the eyes here. There's a bit of orange in there as well, so we'll just bring a little bit of that burnt ochre into here too. That little pop of a colour actually really helps, and then we'll just bring a little bit in here as well. And bring a little bit down underneath the eye here too. That's lovely actually, that orange. Just bring it, whilst I've got it in my hand, let's just bring a little bit more up here. Just increasing my pressure a little bit so we've got the oranges actually starting to come through a little bit better. I'll also be starting my my first tutorial for 2024. Hopefully next week I'll be starting it, and that is going to be it's a lovely rooster on drafting film. So feathers, colour, very exciting. And I've got some other really lovely ones. I've got a yellow Labrador coming. We'll have a golden retriever. I'll have the Western horse, Western tack when I find the right photo. So we've got some really nice things coming up, and a kingfisher as well, which we're going to be doing in art club. Right, let's go back to the walnut brown and start coming down here. So just nice and gently. Again, it's really, really key, you know, to get sort of like the little dips, the dark areas, the hair going in the right places. It's really key on an animal, particularly if it's a smooth-haired animal, because it gives you all of that, the structure. And you need to have the structure to be able to see what's going on, you know, what's happening with the face. So I'm just going to come down here. Down onto the front of the nose here. Now, there's the first kind of sort of going in that kind of a direction. So as long as your pencil is kind of emulating that, it will be fine. I'm sort of doing this roundy motion just so I can get an idea of the texture in there. What I don't want you to be doing is sitting there doing that, because that way you're going to get very even marks, and it's all just going to look a little bit structured. And we don't want that. We want to have life and soul and everything in our drawings. And that's why, you know, it might look like my hand's going 10 to the dozen, which it probably is, but it's only because I'm going round and round and bringing these sort of soft marks in rather than doing that. Again, that's sort of like a brain thing. Once you get your brain round that, then it becomes something that actually it feels a little bit more like you can do it. Sort of, you know, sometimes things are like, well, it's far too fast. I can't go that fast because I don't have the confidence. But actually, it's not really about it. About confidence and it being fast. It's more about, oh, I can make my marks that way. So down here we've got this lovely light coming down the side of the deer's face here, and then still with this walnut brown that I'm using, it's going to come down onto this edge of the face. We don't want this to be too light, so I'm just going to kind of come over that a little bit. And around there. And then we'll bring a little bit into. Now, when you come to do the back, you do it exactly the same as you're doing the front bit here. We're going to do the nose together as well. But it's very much about just sort of gently bringing the texture of the fur in, building, just bringing the texture of the fur in, and that's going to work really nicely. So let's start to bring a little bit of the nose area in here. So we've got the dark sepia. We've got this little bit of highlight here, so I'm going to come onto the top of that. So we've got that little bit of a shape coming here and there. And then we've got the nostrils sort of coming, and it's almost like I don't know what shape it would be, like a jumping jack, like, you know, jacks. I don't know whether you used to play jacks. It's a little bit like that sort of shape. I'm probably showing my age there. coming in like that. And then this side here as well, we've got a little bit of that nostril. You can see it kind of coming up from the side, and again sort of coming down, and then the nose area is sort of like very smooth, and it comes all the way. I'm just going to use my dark sepia for this. So it's a little bit lighter at the top. And then it starts to get darker. As we come down to the bottom. Which is quite nice. And you can see you don't need a massive amount. You know, with a drawing like this, you don't need tons and tons and tons of detail to make it look realistic. You know, we've got little bits of shine in there. That's great. And then we've got this little bit sort of on the chin area here, which is sort of dark. So we'll just get that little bit of the chin area in there. And then I'm going to bring the burnt ochre in, and I'm just going to bring some of that down into there. And then on the edge of the nose here, where it sort of comes up and the muzzle comes right out. And here as well. Can bring a little bit more of that. I've got walnut brown here. I'm going to sharpen that actually. So just bring a little bit of that walnut brown into there. A little bit of that walnut brown out here. It is quite small, so yeah, I quite like that actually. I'm just going to bring a little tiny bit of black in so that we get the nice darkness in there. I think with a piece like this, it's just nice to be drawing and just making marks and everything, and not feeling that you've got to have everything absolutely spot on and tons of layers in there and all of that kind of stuff. There's definitely a time and a place for lots of layers and everything, but actually it's quite nice to right, and then let's come back in again with that walnut brown. And we just bring a little bit more into that nose area, and then going to bring some more of the burnt ochre in, and then we're going to go back into the head and bring some of those darker areas in. So I'm just a little bit harder with my pressure down here above the nose, and then I'm going to go back in again with my burnt ochre. It's all recorded, and basically you'll be able to use the same link to rewatch it as you did to join it. So you'll just be able to go back with your link. Right, so let's bring a little bit of this burnt ochre into the face here. Just bring a little bit of more colour in, and then we'll go back in again and we'll bring all of those darks in. Just bring a little bit of that orange through here. Glazing, so I'm going lighter here so that we don't lose that nice lightness that we've got. A little bit more of that orangey colour. You can see I'm not being overly careful about where I'm putting the colours, but it's making sense. It's following the structure of the deer. Okay, so we're going to go a little bit darker. So I'm going to go with my dark sepia, and we're just going to go nice and dark where we need to go nice and dark. So sharpen it up. And we're going to go nice and dark down the side of the eye here. And into this little groove here. Just put a little bit of dark out there as well, but we want this nice and dark into here. And then the same on this side here as well. So go nice and dark into here. So my pencil strokes are small, my pressure is a little bit harder. We just want to get that nice darkness in there. In there. And then we've got this big shadow coming across the face, so I do want to kind of bring the a little bit more depth in. So still using my dark sepia, a light-ish pressure. It doesn't want to be so light that you can't see any marks on the paper, but it doesn't want to be so heavy that you're getting big dark black marks in there. And we're just going to come in and just darken up. A little bit of glazing. This is where it's really, really key to practice your pressure. Using a pressure bar, you know, practicing light pressure, dark pressure. My pencil tends to be on the surface of the paper at all times. And I can do light pressure, I can go a little bit darker, I can go a little bit lighter. It's very dexterous, and the only way you can do that and really, really learn that and appreciate that, get in there a little bit, get rid of that little mark, is by practicing. That's literally all it's about. I saw a post today in one of the Facebook groups about, oh, I'm going to get used to my pencils, and I'm going to swatch them all to get used to them. And whilst I'm never ever going to stop anybody from swatching their pencils ever, I would say if you want to get used to your pencils and see how they work, the best way of doing it is to actually draw something, because you can't get used to something with swatching. You're just filling a little square in. You can't see what a pencil's going to do by filling a square in. You can kind of get a feel of what it's going to feel like, but you certainly can't learn you know, what a pencil feels like just by doing a swatch. So, you know, really getting stuck into a drawing, using it with other pencils, mixing it with other colours, that's really the only way of finding out how something works. And it's certainly how I learned to draw. You know, when I first started drawing up, I didn't even realise YouTube was a thing. Well, I did realise it was a thing, but I didn't realise people were teaching you how to draw on it. So, you know, the first few months I was just in my own little world. I wasn't on Facebook groups or anything. And it was only when I discovered and, you know, started asking questions and all of that kind of stuff that I learned even more. But those initial months was just me faffing around with my pencils, you know, which taught me an awful lot. But then, of course, when you sort of see what other people are doing, and you know, you see all of these you know, people asking questions, you can learn a huge amount, you know, just from other people's questions. So you know, I think it's really, really key to get stuck in and just start to draw. So I'm going a little bit harder now still, because I want this to be a little bit darker in here. Let's go down here a little bit, make that a little bit darker. I just want to get that little ear in there finished as well. Just come in. So he definitely is more sort of painterly than being, you know, super realistic. But I think there's definitely a place for this kind of pencil work. I also think that this kind of pencil work teaches you just beautiful softness, and you know, gets you being creative without getting you bogged down with everything being absolutely spot on. And I think there's definitely a place for that. Right, let's just have a look up here. Don't worry, I'm not going to be going on for hours and hours and hours. You might want me to go on for hours and hours and hours, but we won't be going on for hours and hours and hours. I just want to get these this ear in here, so we're just going to darken up in here. And get those nice dark bits around the ear in here. Still working with that dark sepia. Coming through there. Get a little bit of that walnut brown in there as well, I think. Photographer is, I think it's Pexels. It should be on the materials list. So I think it's a Pexels photograph. Yes, the photographer is very, very important. So, you know, I think making that a habit of including, you know, if you're using a specific photographer for your photographs, making it a habit to reference them, I think is really important. Burnt ochre again. Let's just bring a little bit of that orange into here. And then we've got 10 minutes or so left. So if you have got any more burning questions, do ask them. Let's see if we can get a little bit into the horn area up here as well. I just want to bring a little bit more of that walnut brown into the face here. I quite like how his face has turned out, actually. Just want to darken, get this area here a bit darker. So I'm actually giving it a little bit of welly, my walnut brown here, just to get a little bit more shadow in here. So I'm pressing that little bit harder in there. And then I'm going to use a little bit of the cream. Just going to bring a little bit more of that into here. In there. Let's bring that bit in there. Okay, and then let's darken in here as well. This wants to be nice and dark. Yeah, so I think this kind of, you know, it's more sort of sketching, isn't it? It is definitely more sort of sketchy. And really, you don't actually need a line art for this kind of work. You can just sort of make your own up and, you know, just sort of get your marks and everything in there. So this is the walnut brown. Get a little bit more into that ear. And then let's just get some dark into this antler, so it looks a little bit more complete. What's a good practice paper? Well, my thinking is a good practice paper is a good paper. I'm using my black here, and we're just going to go into this little bit of the horn here. So colour pencils obviously are incredibly important, but if you don't have a decent surface, you can become incredibly frustrated. So my feeling is that, you know, there are some sort of more budget friendly surfaces. I would certainly opt for, if you are on a budget, opt for something like a Stonehenge hot press. Definitely. I know pastel mat is expensive. It's expensive because of the way it's made. If you can afford pastel mat, brilliant. If you can't, there isn't anything really like it on the market. But, you know, something like a Stonehenge hot press is pretty good. You know, or any sort of hot pressy type thing. Right there, like that. And then let's just come into this one here as well. It's dark in here. Drawing looks shiny. Yeah, so you're drawing it could be because you're using too hard pressure, but just don't worry about it. Don't worry about it being shiny. Normally it looks shiny if you pick the page up and you look at it at a certain angle. And people will know my flippant thoughts on that is that just don't look at it on that angle and frame it and it'll look fine. You know, so yeah, don't worry too much. It can go a little bit shiny, but it's usually if you're using sort of quite hard pressure. So just sort of, you know, softening your pressure a little bit will really help. Do I use a burnisher? I don't use a burnisher. No, it's not something I've ever used really. I don't really ever burnish my work. This is walnut brown, unless I'm using a hot press paper, and that's why I tend to not use hot press papers, because I have to then use harder pressure, which I don't really like. So I'm just going to come up here a little bit. Let's just get a little bit of colour into these horns, and then we'll finish. And then I've got a little surprise for anybody who wants it. The walnut brown I'm just bringing up here now. Oh, you can't see. Hold on. Oops. There we go. Thanks, Vicky. Sorry about that. Right, so we've got the walnut brown up here. And then I can bring some of those dark colours in there as well. ChromaFlow, yes. ChromaFlow actually, I think, originated, I might be completely wrong here, but in India. They are a more budget pencil. They're sort of supposed to be very vibrant and everything. I have got a full set. Have to say I don't use them. I like the pencils that I use, the polychromos, you know, but if you want to get them, I don't know what the light fast ratings are, but then they're certainly, I think they're classed as more of a sort of a student grade pencil rather than an artist quality. All right, let's just bring a little bit of that in down there, and then I want to bring a little bit of the orange in, the burnt ochre down into this bit down here. A little bit into here, and then we'll bring some of those dark areas in. Okay, so I'm going to use my black. And we're going to go nice and dark. Again, using the surface of the paper to create the texture. Coming up there. A little bit darker, so stronger pressure. In here, and just a little bit up there. And then I know it's scary to sort of, you know, you've been drawing along and I've been telling you, you know, what to do and what not to do, but keep going with it. You know, if anything, just sort of finish the horns off and sort of underneath the head, but look at it as an opportunity to give it a go. You know, don't be scared that you're gonna, you know, do anything other than create an amazing piece. And if you can sort of go into everything that you do with that attitude, do you know what? I'm going to give it a go. I've done this so far. I can remember what Bonny said about this. I can remember what she said about that. Just give it a go, because I think you'd be really, really surprised at what you're actually capable of. I think most people will be very surprised at what they're capable of. I think we put a limit on ourselves sometimes. You know, oh, I can only follow a tutorial, and actually, you really can't. You've got so much more in there. Okay, a little bit more of that burnt ochre in there. And then I just need to darken this off quite a lot. See, my pastel mat has actually changed from here to here, and it's actually grainier at this side than it is at that side. And that's another thing that you kind of just get used to it. You know, you love the paper so much, or I love the paper so much, that you just sort of put up with it. I know we shouldn't put up with it, but there's not an awful lot we can do because it is that sort of artisan surface. It does have the handmade quality, or parts of it in there, which is what makes it so unique and special, I guess. And then we're just going to go a little bit darker down here, and then I'm going to reduce the size of mine, and then we can see where we've got to. Okay, so let's just reduce this down. Let me move that away. Oops. I'm sorry. Okay. Let's make it a little bit smaller. Okay, so let me give you some tips for before we go. Let me give you some tips for finishing. Okay, so probably need to darken these horns just a little bit more. His lovely face here. Little bit, actually I probably wouldn't do any more on the chin, but when you come underneath the chin area here, just make sure that you go nice and dark in here. This needs to be really nice and dark in this area here. And you could possibly bring a little bit of sort of gingery areas in here as well. When you come to do his back, just use your pencil in a nice flicky motion, so that you're just gently following. Bring an orange in, then bring the brown in over the top. Try not to overthink things or overdo things, or make it so that it's exactly the same as the photograph. And you'll be absolutely fine. You know, you'll like I say, you'll surprise yourself. You really will surprise yourself in. Oh, I'm just doing something with my hair now because it's likely to look terrible. Yeah, you'll surprise yourself in the fact that you can. Oh, I don't think that's actually in focus. There we go. That you can actually do far more than what you think you can. Mine's a little bit squished because he's on a bit of an angle. Right, okay, so what I'm going to do is I am going to give you, and this is just for those of you who are excited to be joining me in the Ignite membership. I'm going to put you a little link down here. If you want to join me in my Ignite membership a day early, you can do so by clicking on that link, and you can come and join me in the membership. In fact, let me just hang on. Let me just turn. Oh gosh, look at my hair. I've had my hat on, that's why it's all funny. But if you would like to come and join me in my membership, you can get in a day early by clicking on that link. And I would love to work with you. I would love to help you get to where you want to be with your colour pencil. And there's so much in the Ignite membership. You know, people ask, is it like Patreon? It's nothing like Patreon. Patreon was an amazing place for me to start, but having my own platform that I can control a whole lot of is amazing. And we've got some fantastic changes coming in February as well for all of my members. We've got some really, really incredible changes coming. So if you fancy coming and joining me, you've got access to my Colour Pencil Foundations course. You've got access to all of my back catalogue of tutorials. If you join me today, you can come and join me for Art Club tomorrow, which would be really exciting. You know, and it's got the most amazing community and everything as well. So if you do want to come and join me, you've got that. I'll just pop the link back in again. you can come and join me. But the biggest thing to say is thank you all so much for joining me. We've had a huge amount of people on today. I hope you've enjoyed it. I know we haven't been doing nitty gritty tiny little, I want to say polka dot bikini, but we're not doing polka dot bikini, nitty gritty tiny little details. I know we're not doing that, but hopefully what we've done today has just given you an idea of, you know, how you can work with a substandard photograph and kind of pull some really exciting things in, you know, relatively quickly. And I would love to see, in fact, let me put that in as well. I would love to see some of your drawings, so you can hashtag Bonny's live draw 2024. There you go. You can tag me with that. So I guess the final thing to say is thank you all so much for joining me. It's been absolutely fabulous. Loved every single minute of it. I know that you can finish this. I know you can do it. Of course, I'm available if you need any help. Don't email though. Don't email today. You can pop it in the Facebook group, and I'm always happy to help. So happy New Year, everybody. Thank you all so much for joining me. I've had the most fantastic afternoon, and I will see you all very soon. Okay, bye.